Right, Ms. Williams, the complaint is alleging that on or about the 5th through the 9th day of November 2021 in the city of East Cleveland, you did purposely cause the death of Alishah Pointer in violation of Ohio Revised Code 2903.02a. They're charging with one count of murder with the possibility of a sentence of 15 years to life in prison and up to a $25,000 fine.
At 1:40 in the morning on the 5th of November 2021, Alishah Pointer sent a text message to her twin sister about bringing her food. That message was the last normal communication her family would ever receive from her. She never arrived. The phone went dark. No return calls, no explanations, no trace. 4 days later, when law enforcement located her body inside an abandoned structure in East Cleveland, what they uncovered made an already devastating situation exponentially worse. 6 individuals had spent hours subjecting her to violence in an attempt to extract information she did not possess and could not provide. Alishah Pointer was born on the 5th of November, 1999, in Cleveland, Ohio, sharing a birthday with her twin sister, Aliyah. Known to many by the nickname Tammy, she was raised in a tightly bonded household alongside Aliyah, an older sister also named Alishah, a younger sister, and her mother, Erica Pointer. The 4 of them formed the core of that household, and by every account from everyone who crossed Alishah's path, she was someone who radiated warmth and genuine attentiveness. People described her as a natural listener, someone who absorbed the weight of others without complaint and somehow always managed to identify something worth believing in about whoever stood in front of her, regardless of who they were or what they had done. Professionally, Alishah worked as a caregiver, rotating between nursing home environments where she tended to elderly residents and daycare settings where she looked after children. She extended that same instinct for protection into her community, helping families locate children in dangerous situations and assisting in getting young people to safety when circumstances demanded it. At 22 years old, she was building something. She had enrolled in an IT certification program, was developing plans to launch a digital clothing business, and kept a personal journal dedicated to documenting her goals and the milestones she intended to reach. In November 2021, her twin sister Aliyah was 8 months pregnant, and Alishah was consumed with excitement about becoming an aunt, checking on Aliyah constantly, making certain she had everything she needed, and flooding their text thread with the kind of relentless, joyful communication that defined how close the two of them were. Alishah also had a boyfriend at the time, and that relationship, entirely through no fault of her own, placed her directly in the path of people who would destroy her life. On the 2nd of November, 2021, 3 days before Alishah's birthday, a 19-year-old man named Amin J. Asho was shot and killed in Cleveland's Slavic Village neighborhood. Amin was on the verge of fatherhood, his girlfriend Brittany Smith carrying his child at the time of his death. The killing set off a chain reaction that would consume an entirely innocent person. Amin's circle, including family members and people connected to his life, desperately wanted answers about what happened to him. One of those individuals was an 18-year-old named Hakeem Ali Shomo, a relative of the slain man. When Cleveland police launched their homicide investigation into Amin's death, they brought in multiple persons of interest for questioning, and one of those individuals happened to be Alishah's boyfriend. The critical fact, the fact that should have ended everything before it started, was that Alishah's boyfriend had no connection whatsoever to Amin Asho. He did not know him, had no involvement in his death, and had no proximity to the circumstances surrounding the shooting. Investigators confirmed this and ultimately cleared him entirely. But to the people demanding answers, that exoneration was irrelevant. When Brittany Smith and others connected to Amin could not track down Alishah's boyfriend directly, they made a calculated decision to go through someone close to him instead. They concluded that Alishah, as his girlfriend, must have access to information about his whereabouts or about Amin's killing. That assumption was wrong in every respect, but it drove everything that followed. On the evening of the 4th of November 2021, 4 individuals climbed into a vehicle and traveled to East Cleveland to an area near Glenmont Road and Superior Road. Those 4 people were Portria Williams, age 30, Destiny Henderson, age 17, Nathaniel Polk Jr., age 22, and Hakeem Ali Shomo, age 18. Destiny Henderson was not unfamiliar with the criminal justice system, already carrying 2 prior felony convictions unrelated to this case before she was even involved in what happened to Alishah. Armed with weapons, Destiny Henderson and Hakeem Ali Shomo approached 2 women who were seated in a driveway and forced both of them into separate vehicles at gunpoint. One of those women was released relatively quickly. The second woman was retained specifically because she knew Alishah personally, and that personal connection made her useful. Court documents identified this second captive as Turquoise. Turquoise, who was herself a victim throughout this entire sequence of events, was transported under duress to Alishah's residence and compelled to serve as the instrument of deception that would bring Alishah outside. When Alishah stepped out, she was seized immediately. The group had no intention of releasing her until they obtained what they wanted. They transported Alishah to a house belonging to Portria Williams, where she was held through the night. During that same time frame, 2 additional individuals arrived at the Williams residence. Brittany Smith, pregnant with Amin Asho's child, and Anthony Bryant, an 18-year-old high school student scheduled to graduate that coming December. The detail surrounding Brittany Smith's involvement carries a particular weight. Alishah had reportedly helped Brittany before, providing her with emotional support during difficult periods, extending comfort and care, and even assisting her in some capacity with her business endeavors. None of that history registered inside that house. Inside Portria Williams's home, Turquoise was held in the same space as Alishah initially, and what unfolded over the subsequent hours was a prolonged, violent interrogation. The group demanded information from Alishah about her boyfriend's location, about the circumstances of Amin Asho's death, and about things that Alishah had no knowledge of and no means of providing. This continued for hours. Alishah repeatedly told them she did not know anything. At some point during the night, Nathaniel Polk Jr. departed the house, but Brittany Smith, Anthony Bryant, Portria Williams, Destiny Henderson, and Hakeem Ali Shomo remained. Not a single one of them intervened to stop what was happening to her. While Alishah was being held, her family had no knowledge of where she was or what was being done to her. Her twin sister, Aliyah, had received that 1:40 a.m. text about food and had been waiting. When Alishah failed to show up and stopped answering calls and messages, Aliyah began contacting family members one by one to see if anyone had heard from her. Through their younger sister, Aliyah learned that Alishah had allegedly told her that her boyfriend had abandoned her somewhere. That account made no sense to Aliyah, so she contacted the boyfriend directly to press him for answers. He was genuinely confused, denying any such event had occurred and stating clearly that he had not been with Alishah and had not left her anywhere. While that conversation was still ongoing, the boyfriend received an incoming FaceTime call from Alishah's number. When he answered, he could see Alishah on the screen, crying, but someone else was physically controlling the phone. A disembodied voice delivered a single instruction: turn yourself into the police. Then the call ended. He immediately urged Aliyah to go to law enforcement. Aliyah and her mother, Alishah Pointer, filed a missing person report, but felt that investigators were not treating the matter with the urgency the situation demanded. In the 5th of November, 2021, the birthday Alishah shared with her twin passed without a single word from her. Then on November 6th, the family received a photograph showing Alishah in a state of clear vulnerability. The accompanying demand was explicit. Alishah's boyfriend had 1 hour to surrender to police or she would be harmed. The family rushed that photograph to law enforcement, and investigators finally began treating the disappearance as the serious criminal matter it had always been. They began questioning people connected to Alishah and her boyfriend, but those lines of inquiry produced nothing usable. On the 9th of November 2021, law enforcement received a tip directing them to an abandoned property on Savannah Avenue. Officers responded, entered the structure, and descended to the basement. Alishah Pointer was there. She was dead. She had been there for days. The Cuyahoga County Medical Examiner's Office subsequently confirmed that Alishah died as a result of multiple injuries. With testimony from Turquoise and the physical evidence collected during the investigation, law enforcement had a clear picture of who was responsible. The response was coordinated across multiple agencies, with the FBI, the United States Marshals Service, Cleveland Police, and East Cleveland Police all operating together in the investigation. The first arrest came quickly, with Portria Williams, Destiny Henderson, and Nathaniel Polk Jr. taken into custody in rapid succession. Brittany Smith was arrested shortly after. Anthony Bryant was also apprehended. The one individual who remained at large was Hakeem Ali Shomo, for whose capture authorities publicly offered a $5,000 reward. He was ultimately located in Hopkinsville, Kentucky, and arrested near midnight, becoming the last of the 6 to be taken into custody. All 6 defendants appeared before a judge on the 19th of November, 2021, with each facing a bond of $2 million. Each entered a plea of not guilty and waived their preliminary hearings, sending their cases forward to the county level. A grand jury subsequently returned indictments against all 6, charging them in connection with Alishah's death along with additional counts, including unlawful restraint, felonious assault, and conspiracy. The murder charge carried a potential sentence of 15 years to life in prison and a fine reaching $25,000. Each defendant was advised of their rights, the weight of the charges against them, and the bond conditions that would govern their status until their cases reached county court. The proceedings reflected the scope of what had been done, the range of defendants spanning a 17-year-old already carrying prior felony convictions to a 30-year-old whose own home had been used as the site of the initial captivity. On the 12th of November, 2021, as the legal machinery was beginning to turn, the community gathered on Savannah Avenue to remember Alishah at a public vigil. People carrying pink balloons and wearing shirts bearing her image walked past the structure where her body had been recovered. Her twin sister, Aliyah, and other family members spoke publicly, their grief and fury inseparable, demanding accountability for what had been done to a woman who had spent her life caring for others. Investigators described the case precisely as it was. Alishah Pointer had been abducted, subjected to hours of torture while her captors tried to extract information she never had, then shot and left in the basement of an abandoned building. 6 people had been arrested. More were being sought. East Cleveland police noted that as many as 8 individuals were believed to have had some degree of involvement, with one female suspect still unidentified at the time. The burned-out shell on Savannah Avenue was eventually demolished, with Alishah's family present to watch the structure reduced to rubble, a moment that carried its own particular weight for people who had spent weeks trying to process what had happened inside those walls. In December 2022, 2 of the 6 defendants made decisions that altered the trajectory of the broader prosecution. Destiny Henderson and Nathaniel Polk Jr. both entered guilty pleas to charges of involuntary manslaughter, kidnapping, and conspiracy. As conditions of those agreements, both individuals agreed to cooperate fully with prosecutors and to testify against the remaining defendants. The other 4, Anthony Bryant, Brittany Smith, Hakeem Ali Shomo, and Portria Williams, declined to accept plea arrangements and push their cases toward trial. In March 2023, proceedings commenced for Anthony Bryant, Brittany Smith, and Hakeem Ali Shomo. Prosecutors presented their case. Witnesses, including cooperating defendants, took the stand, and the courtroom was filled with family members from multiple sides of the tragedy. Then a mistrial was declared on procedural grounds. Defense attorneys argued that the presiding judge had engaged in communications with prosecutors without including defense counsel in those exchanges, a violation of procedural fairness. The defense went further, asserting that this was not a mere administrative oversight, but rather an intentional act by the judge designed to manufacture a mistrial, and they argued that double jeopardy protections should bar the defendants from facing trial again. A new judge examined the arguments and rejected the motion to dismiss, ruling that the prosecution could proceed. That decision kept all 4 remaining defendants in the path of criminal accountability. In October 2025, nearly 4 years after Alishah Pointer was taken from her family, Brittany Smith entered a guilty plea to charges connected to Alishah's death and to the conspiracy surrounding it. Later that same month, on October 31st, Anthony Bryant's case was submitted to a jury. Unlike Brittany Smith, Bryant contested the charges fully, but the jury returned guilty verdicts on multiple counts. On the 25th of November, 2025, Hakeem Ali Shomo also stood trial before a jury and was convicted. Portria Williams, whose home had been the original site of Alishah's overnight captivity, also ultimately entered a guilty plea. The machinery of accountability had processed all 6. On the 7th of January, 2026, 3 defendants stood before Judge Molly Murphy for sentencing. Alishah Pointer, Alishah's twin sister, delivered a victim impact statement that laid out in precise and devastating terms what had been taken from her and from everyone Alishah had loved. Alishah described a bond that had existed from the moment of birth, a connection that did not operate through any mythologized twin intuition, but through deliberate, constant, joyful presence in each other's lives. She described Alishah as someone who placed other people ahead of herself with consistency, whose smile changed the atmosphere of a room, who was a dependable anchor for every person in her orbit. Aliyah told the court that at the time Alishah was taken, she herself was 8 months pregnant, and that Alishah had been overjoyed about the approaching birth, checking on her daily, sharing in every detail of the anticipation. She described looking at her children now and seeing Alishah's face reflected back at her, and carrying the knowledge that one day she will have to explain to them who Tammy was and why she is no longer present. She spoke of a clinical diagnosis of PTSD and anxiety following the crime, of depression arriving without warning, of nightmares and panic attacks, of waking from sleep unable to breathe, and genuinely unsure whether she is dying, of intrusive imagery that breaks through her concentration at work and in public spaces, of a persistent and rational fear about who among the people she encounters might have a connection to those responsible for what happened to her sister. She told the court that the crime did not simply take Alishah, it fundamentally restructured how Aliyah sleeps, works, trusts, and moves through the world, and that the shared future she and her twin were supposed to inhabit together had been permanently severed. She closed by asking the court to weigh not only the severity of the offense, but the permanence of its consequences. Alishah Pointer, Alishah's mother, then addressed the court. She thanked law enforcement and the prosecutorial team for pursuing justice for her daughter. She expressed that even with all 6 defendants having admitted guilt or been found guilty, the sentences available to the court would never feel commensurate with what had been done. She noted that 2 of the defendants were mothers themselves and expressed the incomprehensibility of how someone capable of bringing life into the world could participate in destroying another person's life with such brutality. She described the physical toll the loss had taken on her: dramatic weight loss, complete hair loss, a Mother's Day during which she could not bring herself to accept acknowledgement as a mother because she had been unable to protect her child. She spoke of sitting through proceedings in which she was forced to view and hear things no parent should ever be subjected to. She said she remains frozen in time, that Alishah is still 21 to her in her mind, that grief has not softened and that time has not functioned as a remedy. She told the court that her daughter's birthday, November 5th, a day that should have carried nothing but celebration, was instead the day Alishah was burned and beaten and subjected to the unthinkable. She said that even after enduring everything that was done to her, Alishah was still beautiful when she was laid to rest. Alishah's older sister then addressed the court as well, offering gratitude for the 4 years of sustained effort by investigators and prosecutors, and leaving the room with a question she said she could never fully resolve: how any of the people in that house could have looked at her sister and failed to recognize the humanity in front of them. Because she said she knew, with absolute certainty, that who Alishah truly was had been visible to every single person present during those final hours. Following the family statements, the defendants were offered the opportunity to speak. Hakeem Ali Shomo declined to address the court. Anthony Bryant also chose silence. Brittany Smith spoke, entering the courtroom carrying a Bible, and offered words that acknowledged shared responsibility while stopping short of claiming direct participation in the shooting or the kidnapping. She said that emotions following Amin Asho's death had been running at an uncontrollable level, that one decision compounded into another, and that the situation escalated far beyond what it ever needed to become. She said her silence, her failure to intervene and stop what was happening, cost Alishah her life. She said not a single day passes without her thinking about Alishah and about what a different choice in that moment could have meant. Judge Molly Murphy then imposed sentences. Hakeem Ali Shomo received life in prison without the possibility of parole, plus an additional consecutive term of 36 to 41.5 years. Anthony Bryant received life in prison without parole, plus a consecutive additional term of 17 to 22.5 years. Brittany Smith received a life sentence with the possibility of parole, but only after serving a minimum of 41 to 45 years. On the 9th of January 2026, the remaining 3 defendants appeared for their sentencing hearings. Destiny Henderson's parents addressed the court, her mother offering a direct apology to the Pointer family. Destiny Henderson's father described the moment he received the call from his daughter, saying she was caught up in something serious, described moving immediately into a protective parental instinct, only to be told by his daughter that Alishah had already been killed. He expressed that he believed his intervention had come too late. Destiny Henderson received a sentence of 25 to 30 years in prison. Nathaniel Polk Jr. received a sentence of 23 to 28 years. Portria Williams, whose house had served as the original detention site, received a life sentence with the possibility of parole after serving a minimum of 23 years. With those final sentences, the criminal proceedings reached their conclusion. All 6 individuals involved in the abduction, prolonged torture, and murder of Alishah Pointer were held accountable by the court. Hakeem Ali Shomo and Anthony Bryant were remanded to Lorraine Correctional Institution. Brittany Smith was designated to the Ohio Reformatory for Women. Destiny Henderson, Nathaniel Polk Jr., and Portria Williams were assigned to facilities determined by the Ohio Department of Corrections. Alishah Pointer was 22 years old. She was a caregiver, a sister, a daughter, a twin, someone who filled journals with her ambitions and checked on a pregnant sister every single day. She was taken because someone could not find the person they were actually looking for, and they decided that getting to someone close to him was close enough. She had no information to give them. She never did. And 6 people, none of whom chose to stop what was happening even when they had the chance, carried her death out of that house and left it for her family to carry forever.